Hello, and welcome to today's presentation. My name is John Joseph, and I'm Vice President of Marketing with CIMCON Lighting. Today's presentation is Dynamic Asset Management with our LightingGale software, and thank you for joining us today. I'll be saying a few remarks just to set the stage about what Dynamic Asset Management is, but our main speaker today is Chris Kendrick, and Chris is a Business Development and Sales Executive here at CIMCON Lighting. And Chris, why don't you say hello?
Hi. Thanks, John. It's great to be here today to talk about dynamic asset management. Let's continue.
Great. So today's agenda is, first of all, we're going to define what we mean by dynamic asset management, especially the dynamic part of that. And we're going to talk about, after that, the importance, the impact of it, why it is something you should be paying attention to, and how we can help. And so then we'll get into the CIMCON Lighting's management software, which allows you to manage your lighting assets specifically, both monitoring dynamic and static assets and reducing any management issues that are related to those. We'll show a brief demonstration of how the software can help, and then we'll talk about sharing that asset data with other software applications that you might have. And finally, we'll wrap up with a few questions and answers. So what is dynamic asset management? What do we mean by that? First of all, there are a lot of new assets that towns and cities are taking ownership of or management of today, especially with the transition to smart cities. So first of all, primarily, many cities have been taking ownership of their lighting assets, buying their assets back from their utilities so that they can convert them to LED lights and to add things like controls and better manage them. But there are other things as well. So there are sensors and cameras that are also being added to the mix of assets that cities need to take on. So one of the issues or characteristics of what we mean by dynamic asset management is just this changing roll call of assets that are now under your management, and you know, it's a new thing for many towns, and it's something that to be planned out and kind of thought through before you start down that path. But we can certainly help you do that. So the other aspect of dynamic asset management is that it's not just you know, one luminaire, one control system potentially, one camera, one sensor. It could be many manufacturers, especially over time. So multiple manufacturers as you replace worn out parts. It could be different models, different warranty spans. You might, even if you do stay consistent in terms of the equipment that you're purchasing, you replace them at different times, so they could have different ages and different you know, expected lifespans from that point forward. And finally, certain aspects of the assets, like some of your sensors that you take on, might have different or special maintenance or calibration schedules that you also need to track. So there are a number of things to keep track of. And also, though, assets are, you know, are typically in the outdoor world, and the outdoor world has lots of variability. It can be very chaotic. First of all, you might want to move those things around. You may not have, if you have sensors for air quality, for instance, you might decide, well, I want to measure air quality in this portion of the town, and then you might want to move those sensors to a different portion as things change in your environment. It also could be that things related to the environment, especially things like power glitches, change and affect the operation of those assets, and that there are other kind of risks associated with the outdoor world as well. Vandalism, collisions, a snowplow knocking over a light pole, which doesn't look like a snowplow knocked over this one in the picture unless it's been there for a while, but storms could knock it down, a car could run into it, etc. So there's a lot of things that can really affect your assets once you get them out there, and again, managing them is important, so you can at least keep track of them and better plan. You know, overall, we're trying to reduce the costs and maintenance required to keep track and manage those assets, make them effective for your city and your citizens. So other important reasons to be concerned and plan for dynamic asset management is the costs associated with it. So poor asset management can have significant costs and also risks. First of all, when we think of asset management, especially if we think about the lighting aspects of things, we think about truck roll costs. So the typical scenario without much management or control or even ownership of the lights is that citizens call in and potentially say, hey, the light is out, you need to come and fix it. You call up your contractor, send them out there, and there's a truck roll cost associated with that. That can be expensive. It can be anywhere from $200 to $800, maybe more, fully loaded. And also, it's not typically just one truck roll for each issue. The kind of industry standard, I guess, is that there's 2.1 truck rolls to repair an outage. And that could be very variable. So that's just an average. But we've heard stories as much as 58 truck rolls to fix one potential problem. Think about things that are intermittent problems, hard to detect, and you keep sending people out there to try to look at it. So those costs can be quite significant. Also, in addition to just the out-of-pocket money related to the truck roll, every time you send a person up in a bucket truck, out on a truck, there are risks associated with that. Health risks. You know, a person could be in harm's way, could be stormy, could be collisions, could be getting tangled in the wires. A lot of things can happen. So there are safety risks as well. So again, avoiding truck rolls is a good goal. But if we think beyond the truck itself going out there, there's other costs associated with having to maintain assets, and by effectively managing the assets, you can reduce them. One is that you have to have an infrastructure to accept those calls and emails, and of course you're going to have this in place anyway, but the fewer calls and emails that you receive from citizens, the better. The less infrastructure, less overhead you have to maintain, and the time as well to respond to those emails and calls will likely go down as you have fewer of those, and that's an important aspect. So how fast you respond to those calls and emails is important, and actually can affect the quality of life of the citizens and certainly the confidence of the citizens in the town to maintain the town. And so if it takes you a long time to respond to a request for to fix a lighting outage, that erodes the confidence that the citizen has, and they might call up multiple times asking why it hasn't been fixed because the person called up a month ago and it still hasn't been fixed. Imagine, if you will, and we'll show you how you can do this, that you are proactive and actually can see outages before the citizen does and take action to fix it before the citizen even recognizes that there's a problem. So it's quite a different experience for the citizens within the town. So those are some of the reasons for to pay attention to asset management, why it's important. And just briefly, when we talk about asset management, I think it's important to consider the different phases. So we aren't just talking about the installation of the asset. There are really three major phases of an asset life cycle that your asset management processes should cover. So it should cover the deployment process, which is getting the assets acquired and out there. So you might have to map locations of the assets, inventory the assets. We'll talk about, we have a mobile application, for instance, that helps accelerate the process of inventorying the assets because it's such an important part of the process. Once the assets are deployed, though, then you're into the monitor and maintain phase. And there you want to keep track of the condition of the asset. So again, is the light on or off? Is it reaching the end of life? Is it performing as you expect? It could be significant impact in terms of the energy usage, for instance, of a light. So how is it performing? And you might need to schedule some regular maintenance, especially for things like sensors and things like that that are might need calibration. So you need to keep track of the asset during this, the bulk of its life, which is this running of the asset and the monitoring and maintaining phase. And finally, though, when you talk about the last phase is replacement. So again, worrying about the warranties, worrying about keeping track of when it is time to replace, and if you do have a handle on your assets, you can actually be predictive and proactive as opposed to reactive in taking replacement action. And of course, like we said in the last slide, that can have an impact on the confidence of the citizens and just the quality of life for citizens. So specifically with lighting, we think about when is that lighting reaching the end of its burn hours. So asset management should really think about all three of those phases when you're thinking about asset management. So now I'll turn it back over to Chris, and he'll take us through the LightingGale software and how it can help you with your asset management challenge.
Thanks, John. Yes, so the LightingGale software is a SaaS deployment of our software that manages all of your assets in the environment. We call it just-in-time lighting and asset management because we know that assets are dynamic. They move. You need to be able to visualize those assets wherever they might be in the environment. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about LightingGale. So it really starts at the pole. We transform your existing street lighting infrastructure into a citywide network that allows you to communicate from all of those remote locations back to the central office. So it allows you to manage your assets from a single location. And it also gives you visibility of all of your lighting assets throughout the entire life cycle. And that's why we call it ALM, your Asset Life Cycle Management. This canopy allows you to manage additional assets also, sensors, air quality. If you are having ads placed on poles, you can manage those also. EV charging stations, waste management, and also for security purposes, all of your cameras in a given location. So the canopy is very flexible. It really starts at the lighting and it builds from there and creates a canvas over your city. And it gives you the opportunity of instilling better lighting environments for your constituents and citizens. Better quality of life drives economic growth. Better citizen engagement brings folks downtown and in a safe environment. And, also a cleaner environment when you have waste management that is just in time. So some of the aspects of how we manage the network from the pole, it really starts at our controllers. Our controllers gives you the opportunity to give all of your sensors that are in the environment a voice. And this is why we can detect and manage and mitigate problems before they arise. And like John said, it's really about planning. If you plan instead of react, it costs less. So that means really less truck rolls and other situations. But the sensors themselves are tracked through a GPS sensor. It's very accurate. We also have power metering. So if you have, if you don't own the infrastructure and you need to monitor your energy sources and consumption for your provider, you can give a very accurate reading of the energy that's being consumed by sensors. One of the key energy savings aspects of our system and network is adaptive dimming. The adaptive scheduling of luminaires so that they can dim at certain hours during the given day or night. Also, our network is very resilient from a organizing point of view, we can detect issues within the network. We can mitigate those. It's a mesh network so that the nodes communicate from hop to hop. If one node goes out, that's not a problem. It can work autonomously until a service person could come out and change out the luminaire or the power. So it's a very, very robust environment. Also, we integrate other sensors throughout the network. For example, we were talking about air quality sensors, microphone detection for loud bangs if you're in an urban environment. We detect all of that. And at the end of the day, it is a photocell. The photocell can operate autonomously, as I stated before. So we create a very balanced environment from the controller, in which we know the exact location and how things are working, the performance of the assets that are out in the field, and all of that information is shared back at the cloud. So LightingGale is a management solution for outdoor lighting. It's integrated, has integration points with Google Maps, so you can easily visualize where your assets lie. I speak to many cities and towns who really don't know where their assets are, and they really want a solution that will allow them easily to enter in some of that information about their assets as they deploy. Some of the things that are stopping them from actually deploying new assets into the environment is the fact that they can't find them. Also, we have reporting dashboards that gives you a quick view of what is happening within your network, and we will show a little bit of that later. Adaptive dimming controls also, as I mentioned before, are key areas of the network that provides pretty much the bulk of the savings from the luminaire, if it's an LED deployment. Also, we have integration points from a REST API point. We also can integrate directly with GIS systems from a flat file or directly through our APIs. Also, email alerts and text alerts are a big part of how we detect how the assets are performing in the field. If an asset is not beaconing back to the central location, we know exactly where it is. We can go out and mitigate the problem, fix that problem before a citizen actually comes forward and says, hey, that luminaire or that light is not functioning, or that light is too bright, and I'm watching it every evening through my window. Also, asset management for additional assets. If you bring on different sensors for your environment, we can also track those assets because it starts at the pole. Every pole or system has its own GPS beacon so that we can track that throughout the city. Important aspects of managing your assets and recording information about the asset. Typically, this can be challenging with heavy gloves on. If you're at the pole out in an outside environment and can't reach a computer screen, the Easy app eliminates this problem with data collection directly at the pole. So if you're working in an environment and you need to record different aspects of the pole number, what's attached to the pole, if there's a tree near the pole that could knock it over. All of these key indicators can be easily recorded at the pole. The Easy app is a scanner. You can scan barcodes. You can scan your SLC to troubleshoot it or report that information. directly back to the cloud. It's really fast to collect the data, and of course, greater accuracy because it's an automated process. It allows the crews and contractors to easily record the data, the patient information, pole fixtures, and all of the associated information that's associated at the asset. And of course, it automatically transfers all of this data directly back to the cloud. So now I'd like to take you through a brief demonstration of how the software works. So here you're seeing a view of the LightingGale software. This system is in real time. You can see that we have assets that are placed out in the field, and it's near an airport. One of the key things that this customer wanted was they wanted the lights at the airport entrance to always be on. So we could schedule that at different times to make sure that those assets are actually visible and the lighting is always available. You can click onto an asset to see its location. You can see that there's a little reticle around the asset of interest. I can click on that and see the location, where it is, how much voltage it's actually putting out, what type of LED it is, the lamp status, the gateway information. I can click on that asset and immediately get a view of where that asset is located, how many SLCs or nodes that are out in the world, what they are is connected to this particular gateway, and how many assets are communicating back. So I have entirely a clear view from a single pane of glass back to my network. Additionally, I can see the status of my assets. Here I can see that my assets are on. One light is actually turned off, how it's communicating, how much voltage is coming from the pole. As I said previously, we understand metering, and also what mode the asset is in. And this means if the asset is in a photocell override, that means it can operate autonomously on the photocell, or if it was in a mixed mode situation, that we could actually schedule the lights to come on at a predetermined time. Also, every asset has a location. As you can see here, all of the assets that are depicted on this page are located in a location, what type of asset it is, what type of voltage it is. So all of these are key indicators of how the asset is performing, and if there's any situation where I need to go out and mitigate a problem, I know exactly where to go. So as a part of the inventory, I have one gateway here that is a part of our inventory. I know exactly where that gateway lives in the real world. And as I said before, I can see individual assets, where they're located, in particular what type of software, hardware is on that pole, and how it's running. And I can also put in different lamp types. And this is very key for managing your infrastructure, because you can have different luminaires from different manufacturers. The software is very flexible in that regards, so that you can add particular assets and associate those assets with a given fixed asset or a mobile asset. For example, if you wanted to move a asset within your city, whether it's air quality or a camera, we can track that asset dynamically. And lastly, we can add our own assets. For example, here, I added a street pole and I gave it some attributes, how tall it is, the thickness of the pole. All of these are key information that the crews can use the Easy app to install this information out in the field. And it shows up directly into the LG software. Also, we can add fixture types. It's key. Also, who your energy provider might be, and typical smaller details like the brackets that is actually mounting all of the gear that's on the pole. All of these are a part of the dynamic asset management of the system. So, asset management, and as I indicated, there's a lot of information about the assets that you want to know about during a given day. A lot of this information is set up once in the LG software. It allows you to drill down at particular times, but also it allows you to generate reports and schedules. These reports and schedules and notifications are really the key benefit of managing your infrastructure. We had a situation where one of our customers had a individual that was telling them that the lights were not coming on, and the crews would go out and see that the light was on, but the individual would call back in and say the lights are off, and the crews would go back out and see that the lights were on. Our customer was able to go into the system and visualize what was happening because they could see that there was an intermittent with the ballast and driver that was in the luminaire. So through the notifications and drilling down and looking at the reporting, the extensive reporting in the system, they were able to determine that there was an intermittent in the system, and they were able to send a crew out to fix the associated problem. And that's key because there was only one truck roll. They had the right parts in the truck so that they could fix that problem on site with one truck roll. Also, as I reported earlier, there is an energy report that we are tracking, so you can see your energy trends and how your system is performing throughout the year. You can make small changes by using adaptive dimming controls. And also, as John indicated, as a part of your warranty, if one of your luminaires went out went out of its warranty status because it burned out too early, then you could take this data and go back to your manufacturer and say, your luminaire LED was rated for 4,000 hours, but this light went out in 2,000 hours, and here's the record of that. So we would like a credit or a replacement for that luminaire. So here's an example of a real-world case study. We had a customer that had 1,500 street light issues last year. To remotely manage those luminaires, they eliminated 400 truck rolls just by using the LG software as I described. This was a huge savings of $320,000. Also, they eliminated a cost of $800 per truck roll. And that's huge when you have constituents and citizens actually calling in, reporting that there's an issue. You can mitigate those by just using the software and having a single view of how your network is performing. And lastly, a lot of our customers ask us how we data share between other third-party applications. One of the applications that we see widely used are your GIS systems that are used for ticketing and maintaining other assets. We can import information from these systems directly into the LG software. For example, if you have assets that already have GPS data, or other key indicators, we can move that into our database. But also, we can move our dynamic data directly into the GIS database in their format. And this allows you to data share between LG's real-time environment with some of the static records that are in the GIS database. But also, as a part of that, that accuracy of where the asset and the asset's life cycle is automatically imported into the GIS infrastructure. So that allows you to track all of your information from a familiar infrastructure that you may already have. So all of this data can be exported through our REST APIs. Additionally, it can be shared by flat file systems. But again, all of the alerting, you can remediate issues, all of your outages, your plan versus react can be a part of your already CRM or ticketing infrastructure. And we are very knowledgeable about how this is done. So if you have immediate needs, please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you about our networking system. So that said, we'd like to take some questions for today. I know that there's some questions coming in, and John is fielding those. John?
Yep.
Have any?
Yep, thank you, Chris, for taking us through that. Yeah, first question is, there are a few questions here, so we have a minute to take a few. So let's start with, how do you commission a new asset?
Well, the new asset is easily commissioned, as I said earlier, with our Easy App. Our Easy App is instrumental in commissioning new assets into the real world. But also, the network itself is automated in a way such that when you attach one of our nodes or SLCs, it turns that luminaire into an IoT device, Internet of Things. We would like to say it's outdoor Internet of Things because networks that are outdoors are very hard to maintain, and we make it very easy. We automate that process by, as soon as the luminaire has a SLC attached to it, it starts to beacon back to the LG software through our gateway, and we automate the process by commissioning that SLC onto our back-end software. So it's a very automated process. It can happen in the field, or it can happen back at the central office.
Great. All right, here's another question that came in. So you mentioned that the system was compatible with GIS systems. Can you export the asset data in multiple formats? What protocols do you support?
Oh, right. As I said, we do have web services and REST APIs. But typically, we're asked to export those files in a comma delimited text format, which can be digested by just about any application. But, you know, we do have this feature where you can send an email of a a report directly to a CRM, which then that email is digested by the CRM, and that record is placed into this ticketing system. So there's multiple ways that we have that allows you to move that data into your GIS or CRM.
Great. Another one, can this help with predictive maintenance? Can it give an early warning of when I may need to replace my lights?
Absolutely. Our systems have a email or text alerting system built in where you can have your system can notify you on a daily basis of the health and the KPIs of a given asset. That can arrive to either a crew person that's out in the field by a text message with its exact location, or it can be an email notifying on a daily basis of the health of the system. So once you get that in the morning or in the evening, most things happen at night, so the crews can go out exactly at that time when they're notified to take a look at how the asset is performing. Or if an asset is moved or has lost power, they can also go out and identify why that might be the case.
Great. One more, and then I think we'll close off after that. So sometimes we have damage from snowplows hitting the light poles, and the light ends up on the ground. Is there a way that it can detect that, and how quickly can it detect that kind of problem?
Absolutely. We have tilt sensors that are built into our nodes. So if a fixture was hit or damaged by a vehicle, we would know immediately because we would have a trap or trigger that will trigger an immediate notification that something violent happened at the pole, and then it would give a crew a notification exactly where that happened and a report of what the likely cause of that event was. So we know when it's anomalous or just a normal course of business for the day.
Great. All right, so let's wrap up there. On the screen there is a link where you can actually request a Smart City pilot, where you can get some lighting controls as well as things like an air quality sensor and vehicle counting solution or people counting solution. Chris, do you want to maybe comment before, as we close here, on if someone wants to get a complete tour of the LightingGale software, how do they do that? Should they just contact you at your email address there?
Yes, you can contact me directly, or you can go to our webpage, as indicated, and at the top right-hand corner there is take me through a demo, and we can do it that way. And our partners have a partner portal that you can get a lot of this information and recordings of prior webinars. So yes, definitely reach out to me directly or schedule something online.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Yep. Thank you, everyone, for attending.